If you're a Notion power user, chances are you really like the map function. Well, what I'm going to show you in this video is something that I found out just yesterday, and it blew my mind, so I hope it blows your mind too. So let me explain what we're looking at here. In this database schema, I have four databases, and you can have way more than four databases for this trick to work, but I'm dealing with something like areas being linked to notes, being linked to ideas, and those ideas being turned into tasks. And one thing that I've always struggled with is inside the areas database, I want to be able to get properties all the way over here from the task database. Let me go ahead and explain a little bit more about what I want to do. So this is the example of a level 1 relationship where I have areas and I have notes. So if I'm inside the areas database and I'm inside one of the example areas, I can easily get the notes and I can get any notes properties stored inside this notes database. Let me show you what that looks like. So this is me inside the areas database, and I'm opening up one of the sample area pages, and I'm opening up a sample formula. Here, if I go ahead and type notes, I can see any of the notes that are linked to the areas database. And on top of that, if I use the map function, I can also go ahead and figure out any of the properties linked to notes and see any of those properties. That is something that I've always done, and I use it in almost all of my databases. I can also do a little bit more than that in a level 2 structure. So if I have something like areas and I link it to the notes database, which we have seen before, and we link notes to a third database called ideas, I'm able to, inside areas, see the notes, see all the properties of the notes, and also see all the ideas that these are linked to, because ideas are a property of notes. So let me go ahead and show you what that looks like. If we have notes and we map the notes to the current idea property linked to those notes, we can see all of the ideas linked to all of the notes inside this area. Now, this is where things get a little bit tricky. I want to know a little bit more about these ideas, and I want to be able to access the properties of the ideas that are linked to the notes inside this area. So traditionally, what I would have done is any map returns a list of values. So I would have gone and done this and tried to find the current properties of this idea. But this is where I hit a roadblock. And this is where I hit this kind of list of functions that doesn't tell me anything about the ideas. And I figured out how to solve this problem just yesterday. So let's go ahead and take a step back and get rid of this map function. This is how I solved this problem, and it wouldn't have been possible without this new Notion feature that lets you see what type of object you are actually returning at the end of the formula. So if I break this down further, let's go ahead and just look at the notes property. The notes property is what I would call a 1D array in traditional programming. So there are just one set of brackets on the outside, and inside the set of brackets, I have some items which are notes. When I try to run a map function on this notes list, I can go ahead and run that function and easily see any of the properties of the current note. And then when I return all of the ideas related to these notes, I am actually sent a 2D array, not a 1D array like I've always been expecting. So now what I've realized is that using a trick of the hand, we can go ahead and flatten this array into a 1D array and see if our map function works, because a map function is only going to work if it's run on a one-dimensional array. So let's go ahead and break this down. We are going to flatten this list so that instead of a 2D array, we have a 1D array of idea objects. Now, the map function should go ahead and work on this one-dimensional array of ideas. So now, if I go ahead and call the map function and pull out the current object and try to see if I can access properties, I can definitely go ahead and access properties here. Now, I've gone from being able to just access the area and note properties to being able to access the area, the notes, all of the note properties, all of the ideas, and all of the properties of an idea. And this can be extended to any number of databases in your database schema. So let's go ahead and try it on one more level of database. So I'm going to get the tasks that are related to these ideas. And I'm going to see that, again, I'm returned a two-dimensional array and not a one-dimensional array like I've always been expecting. So now let's go ahead and look at what properties we can pull from the task database. And again, zooming in over here, we see areas, we have notes, we have ideas, and then we have tasks. Very similar to what we have over here. We have areas, notes, ideas, and tasks. And here we can see that this has a couple of properties, but the property that I'm going to pull is this due date property, and I want to see if it matches up with the tasks over here. So again, we're using the same concept of flattening and then mapping. So if I go ahead and flatten this object and then try to map it, I see that I do have access to all of the properties inside tasks, and I can go ahead and get that due date that I wanted to get. So ideally, this would return all of the due dates of all tasks inside all ideas, inside the notes, inside this area. And just to prove that point, I'm going to go ahead and create a new task here related to this idea, which is going to be some idea about money. And I'm going to set a due date for this task. And now that I've gone ahead and done that, we can go ahead and look inside our formula, and we can see that we have two due dates now, and those are all of the due dates of all of the tasks of all of the ideas inside all of the notes inside this area property. I really hope this helped you out, because this has been a huge blocker for me for, I would say, the entire time I've worked with Notion, and I can't believe that the fix was so simple. And now I'm able to access any property across any number of relations in any database schema.